Ryan Hanley. My agency, Rogue Risk, that I founded in 2020 was acquired in 2022 and negotiated an early exit in November of 2023. I now have a executive coaching and advisory business called Finding Peak, and I speak like I will be tomorrow afternoon.
Adam Bowe, CEO and founder of Cake. We are a marketplace that helps agents value, sell, and buy either full or fractional pieces of their business. So we're really trying to help keep, I think a lot of the books of business that are with the agents that are heading towards retirement, we're trying to facilitate those sales to help that stay in the small to medium-sized independent channel.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Anurag Shah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aureus Analytics. We are probably more popularly known by our product Donna than we are known by Aureus. So we are an AI platform for independent agencies. We've processed more than 7 billion of premium on the platform, helping agents to find value from their data, helping them increase their revenue, improve their retention, with a zero data entry platform called Donna. So that's basically what we do. Working with agencies is all we do all day.
Hi, I'm Michael Streit. I'm the president of EasyLinks. EasyLinks is a comparative rater management system, and we're proud to power a lot of the agents in this room.
Hi, I'm Frank Sentner, sole proprietor and sole employee of Sentwood Consulting. I've been in the insurance technology space for 47 years. You can tell I'm old. I say both words. And I'm also, at this stage of my career, working primarily with startups in the Insurtech space. And I'm wearing my Donna hat here because I'm on the advisory board for Anurag's company. I'm also on the advisory board for Cake, and I'm on the advisory board for the Insurance Agent app.
I think it'd be easier, Frank, if we stated who you weren't working with. It'd be a shorter list.
Frank's also on my personal advisory board. So.
No, there's a lot of experience and a lot of talent on this stage. So I want to dig in because everyone, has those ideas, but the ideas turn into execution. But without it having a solution for a true problem, really none of it matters. So Adam, what was it that drove you? What solution did you see Cake solving that didn't exist currently?
Yeah, so I worked in manufacturing prior to this, and it was with small to medium-sized manufacturers that were driving growth in their towns. And that company IPO'd, and we were kind of thinking about what to do next. And I was talking to an independent agent who had sold their agency. And that brought me to the M&A space. But then when we started getting into the data, I don't know where Carrie Wallace is, but wherever, she was one of my first introductions into the space. And so name checking her because a lot of this data comes from her. But 84% of agencies make less than $1.25 million a year in ARR. 17% of agents are 66 or older. So you got the gray wave, the silver tsunami, fun name for a lot of people who are about to retire. And most transactions happen in about 2% of the market, which is $10 million plus ARR. So we've heard a lot about M&A, but the existing channels service a very small portion of the market. And I love working with people that have that entrepreneurial spirit, that are part of their town, part of their communities. That was what drove us at Xometry with small manufacturing, and I saw a lot of parallels over here. So saw a huge opportunity in M&A and a huge way to honor the hard work that people had put in throughout their careers and help them achieve a celebration moment, right? Like instead of a stressful transaction, a really celebratory moment of the hard work. But then also like the agents that are just in the middle of their career or starting their career, having access to that inorganic growth is really powerful. So we thought that was really strong, and that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Anurag, being a data analytics company, how does each individual in this room impact the performance or efficiency of a platform like Dana?
So this is a very interesting industry, right? This is an industry that really is built on data, right? The product is data, right? The services you offer are around data. So it is one of the unique industries where the underlying strength is the data that you have. Obviously, the quality of the data matters in doing that, but essentially, we've seen that most agencies are not leveraging all of the value out of the data that they already have built over the years in their operations, right? They are usually more focused on being responsive to incoming queries, being more reactive. But if you took some time to look at the data, then there's so much value that you can get out of the data that it can change your business in a significant manner. And that's really where we play most of our role, is helping to pull the data out, help you look at insights with your customers, understanding your customers, understanding the opportunities you have, the risks you have with losing some of them, et cetera. So there's enough value that is available, and most agencies have not really started leveraging it. And that's really a big value driver, which doesn't cost much. By cost, I mean not necessarily just the cost of technology, but from a time perspective, it actually ends up, if it is used well, it ends up saving time than investing time in it. But again, if used well, right? So that's definitely a key driver, and that's been our whole effort on educating, is use your data well, and you can actually do less work and not more work, right? And that's really where tools and technologies can help.
No, absolutely. My brain is sick and twisted, and numbers is what makes it drive. So speaking of data, our industry as a whole has gotten 12% fatter year over year based off of everyone's shirt sizes. And we are 48.5% women in attendance today. So let's give that a round of applause. Raise your hand if you're currently leveraging data in your agency at the agency level and not relying on an Insurtech to do so.
CJ, put your hand down.
CJ, you don't count. So no one. Raise your hand if you're using an Insurtech or a vendor that utilizes data in your agency. There should be more than that. Raise your hand if you're on EasyLinks. Yeah, I see. All you should have had your hands up. Michael, how much is EasyLinks and Applied reliant on data?
We're extremely reliant on data. Obviously, we use it to run our own business and make decisions about where we invest, what products to build. We run a survey every spring. I hope the EasyLinks folks in the room are taking it, because we use that data to inform where we put our engineering resources and the products that we build. So we're extremely reliant on it. One of the things I love doing is talking with agency owners, and your guys' P&L, your financials, look a lot like ours, if you think about it. We sell contracts to new customers. You sell policies to new customers. It's our job to help, retain those customers by serving them really well. You have the same thing, and we're trying to do it more and more efficiently every year. So we think data answers a lot of our own questions, and we try to tee it up for you in a way that you can use it to make better decisions for your agency, just like we do.
Frank, last year you actually spoke on data. The importance of the data flowing into an Insurtech, a vendor, how does that determine how that vendor or Insurtech is able to perform?
Yeah, last fall I spoke for an hour on this topic, and it is the most critical component for all of the Insurtechs, as well as for the management system vendors. And I have spent a career trying to convince agents to take more care with their data. Everything that you put into your management system potentially can flow to other platforms. My friend Anurag Shah and his team created the Dana product. They also had to create a data quality assurance product on the front end of that, because the results they were getting out of some of their early customers were so bad. The customers, of course, are not paying attention to their data because it's not being used for the most part beyond the input to their systems. Some of it's coming from outside. Could be coming from a third-party rating system or a carrier system, but a lot of it's coming from the fingertips of your people. And unless they are incentivized to actually take care with that data, that bad data is going to flow into a customer experience platform that's going to give you bad information because you put in bad data. It's going to flow into a product that'll help you sell slices or at least value the portion of your business that you would potentially want to sell. And if it's not good data, you're going to be cheating yourself. And the same is true for the Insurance Agent app, where you're now going to push that data out into the hands of your customers on a mobile phone where they can look at it. It's absolutely critical, and I am really at a loss as to how to get that message across other than to say it is your primary responsibility. Well, let's make it secondary. Your primary responsibility is to protect and serve your customer. But after that, their data is your primary responsibility.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think everything everyone said is right. Having operated for 4 years with Rogue and trying to build this human optimized model, which I've talked a little bit about in different places, where I wanted to take this stat that I picked up from about a decade ago, where the average personal lines experience takes about 20 minutes total, from time the person contacts us to the time the transaction, whatever it is done. Okay. 5 of those minutes are spent on the phone, 15 of those minutes are spent transacting business. Okay, so I wanted to flip that on its head and create technology that allowed us to only have to spend 5 minutes transacting business so our people could spend 15 minutes on the phone, because that's where we do what we do best, right? Relationship building, solving problems, writing business. That's what humans do best. I think that we over-index on data way too much, on the volume of data that we need. My take is we need a substantially less amount of data. But as Frank said, it needs to be crystal clean, because so instead of grabbing 17 pieces of information or 30 pieces of information and putting them in your agency management system, which you're never going to look at again, you use for nothing and literally can only cause problems when you start pulling reports. Maybe find the 5 most important pieces of data that actually give you insights that you could plug into a tool like Donna and get real results from. And when we started to shift this at Rogue, one of the things I saw is my account managers and CSRs were way happier because they didn't have to plug in all this nonsensical data like square footage of a house, right? You can get that online in 2 seconds. You do not need to have the square footage of a house properly formatted inside your agency management system. You just don't need it. It's extra work that creates headaches and problems and creates opportunities for errors in your information. However, what are the 5 to 7 pieces? They're probably different for all of us, but you gather those 5 to 7 pieces and make them really clean, and now all of these tools drive real actionable results. So I think we just have to be, sometimes we think that means I need to collect more data, and I think it's the opposite. We need to collect way less. We just need to make sure that data is very accurate and clean.
Yeah, and I would specifically say, just to identify it, we're talking premium, commission, coverages, limits, deductibles. Possibly endorsements if you have, lines of business where that's critically important. Those pieces of information are predictive of 2 things: the quality of your business and the quality of the coverage you're providing. Those must be correct. And I agree. By all means, get the rest of that stuff from someplace else. If it can come from someplace else, get it from someplace else. But make sure those things are correct.
Can I tell a story to bring some of this
Absolutely.
to light? So I love what Ryan said, 2 things. One, spending time talking to customers, not spending time doing workflows or seeking data. And 2, to build on something Frank said, it's the quality of data is super important. So an anecdote that I have, if anyone in the audience having more challenges recently, renewing business or going through that, I imagine so. We have agency in Colorado, that utilizes Retention Center, which is a tool that we have. The tool effectively takes 3 to 5 pieces of data and it identifies the at-risk renewals. So these people at this agency, they have a group of renewal-focused people. All they do all day is renewals. But what they don't spend time doing is reviewing the list and figuring out who's at risk. They let the system serve it up to them. And then the 20%, 30%, 40% that are at risk, they proactively get on the call with them. So they're spending 30 minutes on the phone explaining the options. Our system can also obviously automate that requote as well. So now you're not even spending time putting that into the system. So all of that's possible only because of the quality of data that comes in. So to summarize, look, if you're using data right, you're saving yourself time. You can use that time however you want, but one really effective way is to engage with your customers, like Ryan said.
Just one top to that. Perfect, I completely agree. I think we're also making the assumption that everyone knows how to use data. Right? I've talked to a lot of agencies in my last 20 years, and that a lot of times is just looking at a chart on how much revenue we did the last month. And that's fine. And the problem, I shouldn't say the problem, the interesting thing about our industry is that you don't actually need to do any of this to be successful because we have the best financial model in the world, and as long as you put more business on the books than you before, most of it retains, right? You can be a shitty agent and do 82%. And like it, So we can get away with it. But I think what we're talking about is not just growing, is not just having a business that stays at a flat number or maybe has a slight 2 to 3% linear growth. If you really want to get to the next level and see true growth, like valuation changing growth, we need to start digging into what that data can provide us. So what are some of those things? Lifetime value of your customers, churn rate, not just churn rate, but digging into churn rate to understand what are the demographic pieces of information of the types of clients that you bring in-house that churn at a higher rate versus the ones that don't, right? What is a high lifetime value customer look like for you? Where did you get them? How are they brought into your agency? What producer brought them in? Maybe they came in through inbound. Maybe they were a cold call, right? I think our obsession with cold calling is bananas. I think you guys are absolutely nuts. You won't do anything with inbound or marketing, yet you'll continue to pay cold calling experts to tell you to pick up the fucking phone. I don't understand. But that being said, do you know if cold calling is the best avenue or all those clients punting the next year? So yeah, you got to pound LinkedIn with your I just wrote 100,000 in premium account and feel good for a day, but if that customer's out the door the next year, it doesn't mean anything. Now, I have no idea how it works for you, but I think what we're talking about, and we often gets lost in this conversation, is the insights we can actually get and how important they are to growth. Maintaining, surviving, you don't need to do any of this shit, none of it. But if you're trying to grow, if you're ambitious, if you want to improve the value of your company, it's this second level order stuff, and how we actually use this data is the only way to get there, otherwise you can't see what's going on.
And the only thing I'll say on that is I think a lot of the like metrics that matter that you were talking about, I actually put that a little bit back on us, right? Like it's our job to bring those forward in a way that like the product is designed that highlights the importance, right? So like Cake should tell you the things that are driving the value in your book, right? And then your job is to figure out how to reinvest in areas that are doing that, or you know, like areas that these are the things that are driving retention, right? And it's like, oh, I'm doing that well, or if I'm doing it poorly, then I need to change process, right? But like the technology should be built in a way that's intuitive for the agent to understand that stuff. So I put the onus is on us to design good products, but the products are relying on clean data, and both of you guys brought up great points. It's not many data points that we need. They just got to be clean.
Yeah, no, dude, it's definitely your fault. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, and I actually want to give a shout out to Michael and the EasyLinks folks, because another aspect of this is how you can get access to your data. It may seem intuitively obvious to you that because you have a login and a password, it's your data, and nominally at least you own it. But if your agency management system vendor isn't providing adequate technology to enable these great Insurtech startups to provide these insights, or they're pricing the access at an economically unsustainable level, you're basically screwed. You have your data, it's inside your system, but it's locked up and you can't get access to it. And agents have never paid enough attention to the contracts they sign with their management system vendors to ensure that they have access to their data. Forget ownership, access. And access is tech and money.
So I think, Ryan, you said earlier, most agents wouldn't know what to do with data. And I fully agree. A lot of it, you look at and you can do the basic charts. But let's talk on some of the different ways using, even the 5 pieces of data that you mentioned, how agents can leverage that and what they're able to recognize when it comes to the trends, like you talked about really dialing in your perfect client or identifying the ones you want to stay the hell away from, just as important. So, Anurag, kind of dig into, the basics that agents could do with limited data within, at the agency level.
Yeah, maybe just take a step back, right? So I think I fully agree on the limited data part of it. So if you look at the insights, if you look at the models that run today in especially, and I know AI is a buzzword, and we have a different perspective to it, but the point is less data is good in the sense that if it is good quality data, the number of fields or the number of data points you capture can be less, because most of the models that are built that actually do a lot of the heavy lifting are built on thousands of variables which you are never going to capture anyway, right? So simple example is you look at a navigation system, you put in an address, and it tells you what's the fastest way to get to that address, gives you 3 options. Which route do you prefer? As far as the input address is accurate, it can still make mistakes sometimes, but as far as the input address is accurate, it is able to do it. So you're only giving 1 data point, but the model that is finding the optimal route is not built on the data from you. It is already built on data points collected outside, right? So all of these large, so it's not, you don't really have to capture thousands of data points for these insights or these predictive models to work. So I took a step back, and going back to your question is once you've done that, then you can look at using these kind of insights and say, whether it's churn prediction, whether it's cross-sell, rounding out your customers, which customers are likely to buy what. Like one of the common things we always say is the worst thing to do a cross-sell effort is to do it on a customer who is not happy right now, right? How do you know that, right? So if you don't know, and if you're trying to sell to everybody, you're going to actually make it worse for those who are currently going through a negative experience, and you're actually going to make it worse. You're going to push them towards churn anyway, right? So those are the kind of metrics that you can look at. How do you compare yourself with others in your industry, right? So one of the metrics, and a lot of people say, yeah, the market is going through a tough time, but it's happening to everybody. So as far as you are comparing yourself with your peers, you should still be able to measure yourself and say, hey, okay, there is a hard market going on, but are we doing better than some of the others? Are we doing worse? Are we at least at par with what the industry is facing, right? So it's not only about what the industry is going through, but also it's happening to everybody, not to you alone, right? So those are the kind of metrics that you can use to drive your business, in a more efficient manner. And I said that at the start, is that if you do it, my guarantee is that you're going to work less, not more, right?
So I'll give you guys an example of what this looks like. I think about the business different than probably most of you, and that doesn't mean right, it just means different, so take this for what it is. When we were looking at our book of business early on, Rogue Risk was a fully digital, 50-state, primarily inbound agency that wrote nothing but small commercial, for the most part. And we started to dig in, after about 2 years, into retention, into revenue, and all these kinds of things. And something that we tracked internally was cost of service. I'm not going to get into that, but it's probably top 5 metric, and almost no one tracks cost of service, but that's a different conversation. What we found is that how we were doing E&S business, our cost of service was the same as direct. The business had higher revenue because we added a policy fee, and it actually had a much lower churn rate than our direct business for what we were bringing in, specific to us. I then compared our current book of business that we had for E&S versus the industry standards and realized that we were slightly higher. And when I dug deeper into that, I realized that our industry actually tries to avoid E&S for the most part. So we doubled into it because we had a process. And again, I didn't know this until we started to dig into the numbers and look at these things, right? I had no idea. We just wrote what came in. And ultimately, we were able to make a really hard marketing and operational pivot. And the day that I exited from the business, E&S was 49% of our business, and it was a highly, highly profitable business. I mean, we were doing $250,000 to $350,000 a month just in E&S. And what it allowed us to separate ourselves. It allowed us to work with a market segment that, for the most part, is treated very poorly, or people just don't have options for. And I would have never done that. It is outside of. I mean, Frank, you've been around forever, right? Who goes? I'm super into E&S business on the retail side, right? I would have, forever. I would have never done that if I hadn't gone after some of these second-level charts and started to really dig into actionable stuff. So that's just one example of how your business can change.
So, like, to break it down as simple as I possibly can, like, view your data as the fuel that fuels the race car. And your Insurtech, your third-party services, are those add-ons that can make that race car that much faster. Okay? If you put dirty fuel into the race car, is it going to run? No. And who the hell is calling me right now? Now, if you've got dirty fuel in the race car, is any add-on or performance part going to operate at its full capacity? So it all stems at the agency level on what you will actually get out of a lot of great companies out there. So break it down all the way to, the team. When you're going through and you're training your team on what to put in, how to put it in, those little things that we overlook can make a big impact in the grand scheme. Anurag, you mentioned AI, so I want to dig in there because AI has, been a big topic, but it's advancing very quickly. Even from just this time, we had the event last year, it's advanced. And I'm going to start with Frank. You've been at this for over 40 years. You've seen the industry, change in many, many ways. AI and the current adoption now to where you think it will be in 5 years.
Lord, just throw me in the deep end. My use of AI personally is pretty minimal. I'm on a local civic board, and we have a statute that we needed to try to educate people about, and I copied it into ChatGPT, and I said, give it back to me at a 5th grade level. And I still couldn't understand what it said. So I said, give it back to me in a 2nd grade level. And it made sense. It worked. That's a pretty, on the one hand, amazing capability. It's also not terribly useful in a business context. All of the startups that I work with, almost all of them do some level of AI. Some are very, very AI intense, like Aureus Analytics. At this point, I don't think Cake's heavy-duty AI, but there's a serious amount of potential there in terms of evaluating more complex financials. But ultimately, they're using AI to do very specific things, okay? So there's a business problem they're trying to solve, they're focusing on it, and they're finding the AI tools that help them address that issue. In the long term, my concern for AI, we're going to run out of electricity. And I am not kidding you. The chips that they're coming out with right now burn electricity like nothing you've ever seen. And they're producing them in the millions. And everybody in the world is jumping in and trying to put this to use. And it's like crypto, only worse, So where it goes, I don't know. The practical applications today are very, very helpful. And especially in a very data-intensive world, agents can limit the amount of data that they need, but ultimately our insurance carrier partners can't. Well, they could, but they're not going to. And ultimately, that data is one of the most complex and rich data sets in the universe. There's almost nothing like it. And so I think there's going to be tremendous opportunities there. And beyond the text type of applications that I've just described, one of my startups does AI video analytics. You know what it takes to analyze someone's face and determine where their eyes are looking so that you can tell, using the camera out the windshield, with the threats that are out there, whether the driver is looking at that actual threat? That's an incredible application for AI. And I see an enormous potential in the risk mitigation category. In fact, in general, with sensors and everything else, that's something that I see as a huge potential for the insurance industry if we can figure out how to monetize it. And agents are the best people in the world for figuring out how to monetize things. And so I've got to believe that this group and other groups like you will be able to figure out how you can help your customers be safer using these AI technologies, rather than just selling them a policy. Because you make somebody safer, you're going to keep them as a customer for a long time. You sell them a policy, especially one policy, who knows?
Michael, from, an AMS standpoint, how are y'all currently leveraging AI? And I know you can't pull the curtains back all the way, but what are things that you are doing to advance the performance of a management system using AI?
So when Taylor asked Frank, where's AI going to be in 5 years, everybody laughed because we have no idea, right, where this is going in 5 years. And I think that's important to keep in mind because it's become such a buzzword. The other thing Frank said is, hey, we're solving real problems with AI with Frank's companies. That's very different than a company sticking AI in their marketing pitch. So I think that's important to keep in mind. To answer your question, Taylor, there's two things we're trying to balance. The first is we're trying to build building blocks and tools that we can use to solve problems. We know that this is a powerful tool, no question about it. So for example, EasyLinks put into the marketing content generation an automated marketing content generator. So you can say, write me a birthday email, and it'll queue something up. And you can say, no, sorry, Frank's getting it, so it's got to be 5th grade level. And it makes it a little bit smarter than my own level. So that's an example. Another thing that we're thinking a lot about is, the second point I'm trying to make is we're trying to solve real problems. So we want to build tools that we can leverage and build upon each other, but we also want to solve real problems. So an example of a real problem that we see is we believe we could make our software even more accessible for agents to learn how to use it. It's an ambitious piece of software. You guys have a zillion things going on. No one has time to sit through 100 training videos. And so is there ways we can put AI into the product where you can ask it a question and have it say, yeah, you want to set up a marketing automation email? Great. Or other things we're considering. You'd love a world where we can actually help interpret data in a natural language way so that Ryan could ask his question. Do I make more money on E&S business or not? And we could spit that out. So that's kind of far in the future, but the balance, again, is we're trying to build cool tools that aren't going to get commoditized by OpenAI or whoever, so real capabilities, but also solve real problems, because to Frank's point, it's expensive to do, and if you're just doing AI to do AI, I ask my team this all the time. I say, are we just doing AI for AI's sake? That's a bad reason to do it. We got to solve real problems.
Honor, with Donna, break down how AI is being utilized to determine the centimeter score and really what that is, because to me, that's, you mentioned it earlier, to focus on a client to try to cross-sell when they're not happy, but you have no idea, what's causing them to be unhappy, what contributed to that.
Yeah, so that's one of the unique things that we've built, and we call it the centimeter score, so it's a play of words between sentiment and meter. So it's a simple 0 to 100 scale, and the whole thinking is, we are in 2024. We don't have to wait for our customer to tell us in a survey that I'm not happy for you to know that they are not happy, right? There is enough data, right? And we've been talking about data.
But what factors give you that I'm unhappy without being told?
Yeah, I mean, there is a secret sauce of how we do that calculation, but in essence, we are looking at
Give it to us.
interaction. Yeah, but we look at interactions, we look at policy events, we look at variety of data points on the historical side, so not just what happened today, but what has been happening with the specific customer or the policyholder over the last several years since they've been a customer on your book, right? So if somebody's been on a book for 5 years, then we're looking at 5 years worth of journey to arrive at that. So from a sentiment perspective, I think the whole thinking is, like I said, you should know what the customer is going through without having to wait for them to tell. Most of the surveys, et cetera, would only, I don't know what's your response rate, but 7-8% response rates are common for NPS, CSAT surveys, which is fine, but you lose a big majority. So this is a mechanism where we look at these different data points and give you like a real-time score of every single customer sentiment as of today, right? That allows you to choose, going back to doing less work, is like, these are the ones that need attention. These are the ones that are at a risk, right, that we need to work on. So again, using data to make smarter choices of where you spend your time instead of trying to call everybody or only calling the ones who respond to the survey, which is obviously a reactive way of doing it. It's important, but it's not enough.
Adam, how do you see utilizing AI to help really dial in the valuation of a book? Because we see it in Soup. What should I ask, for this? Should I ask 2x, 3x, 17x?
Always 17x.
It's 17 every time. How can AI really help an agent find that valuation, but then also ways to improve that valuation to maximize, what they're receiving at that point of sale?
Yeah, and first of all, so Cake today can help you understand the value of your book by giving us a book of business report or connecting your AMS. And we use machine learning, which is, I think a lot of times we say like AI and it just bundles everything, right? But like there's large language models and that's ChatGPT, and then there's machine learning, and there's a bunch of different models within machine learning. And so my co-founder he's my mad scientist in the laboratory, but he's an ML expert, and he's built a model that can help you understand the value of your book. And I think what we were talking about earlier is those data points, keeping your book really clean, right? It's our job to bring through market data, right? So that carrier's performance in that line, in that state, with those types of customers over time, comparing you with recent transactions that have happened in the market, for agencies like your size, right? But what I was talking about with the platform is that we boil that down into, hey, here's your top line kind of valuation trio, low, median, and high, because it's dependent on the buyer. And here are the things that are driving that value, right? So here's where you should look to invest. And I kind of draw like two different analogies, and they're both kind of home market. And one is that if you don't know the valuation of your book, it's like not knowing the value of your house. It's largely your single biggest asset. And even if you're not looking to sell, you should understand the value drivers that are happening there. And Cake has built a tool that can help you do that. But then the second piece is, if I'm in the market to buy, I want to understand the school zone that I'm in, right? The walkability score of that neighborhood, things like that. And what we were talking about earlier is that we gather a ton of data externally. So third-party data that's, Zillow home prices over time, demographics, risk data, et cetera, the insurance data I was talking about, carrier performance. And so that's where Cake, I think, is really driving that. But also we want to look at the likelihood of transaction, right? So like as you start to build these webs and you see these transactions happen, just because the book data matches up between the buyer and the seller, right? If that buyer has transacted and they want they want to close in 30 days, all cash offer, but they don't want you to come work with them, right? But you're a 40-year-old agent that's not looking to get out of the industry and you want to go work as a producer somewhere else, or vice versa, switch it. They want you to come work as a producer, but you're 65 and you want to buy the lake house, right? If everything, just the book data matches up between those two, it's still not a great transaction because the kind of human wants that are going to facilitate that don't line up. And so that's where I put it back on the platforms. We're looking at big data, but trying to distill that down into the metrics that are driving your value so that you can kind of strategically grow, or the ways that you can say, hey, instead of selling all at once, right, I've got a market on here where I've got 10 buyers that would look at these fractional pieces of my business, so I could sell kind of all at once, but to 5 different buyers to drive maximum value to sell that niche to that buyer that's really trying to target that. And so that's where Cake is really focused, is putting money in agents' pockets when they look to retire, honor that liquidity event, and helping you find the best ways to grow your book, but doing it in a way that is digestible and simple so you don't have to learn a totally new market. Like, these folks are busy. We want to make sure that this is an efficient process for them.
I think most of us are fucked. There's a really famous quote from IBM: AI won't replace people. People who use AI will replace people. And I utterly agree with that. I lucked into being an advisor in a company that is building their own unique algorithm and model for AI for insurance. So OpenAI only does words. All OpenAI does at the end of the day, and the most boiled down version, is predict the next best word in a sentence, okay? Doesn't actually understand what it's saying to you. It's not talking to you. It's not your virtual girlfriend or boyfriend, right?
It's not having hallucinations.
It just doesn't know what it's doing, okay? However, that doesn't work, and it's fine for words for the most part, because we can sculpt them in low impact. However, when we get into what our industry needs, it's understanding how business is actually transacted, right? Instead of using words as data points in the algorithm, you have to use actual numbers, symbols, and understand the difference in semantic relationships between them, right? So I've had a chance to nerd out really deep on this particular company, and they're early, whatever. Frank, I've been waiting to tell you about them. It's fun. But I can't help, because of the way that I am, I'm like all the way down the nerd train. I am reading papers that I shouldn't be reading, and I'm putting my math degree to use for the very first time in 24 years or whatever it is. That being said, I think these guys are being too nice to you, and I'm not saying this to be apocalyptic. My belief is this is coming so fast. No one knows what's going to work and what's not. There's a tremendous amount of money being put into it, and the adaptive rate of change is so much faster than anything that we've experienced before, and that's what scares me. There's going to be plenty of hits and misses. There's going to be plenty of things that don't work. There's going to be explosions. There's going to be scandals and all that stuff. But unlike the internet, unlike VoIP, unlike any other technology that has been brought to our entire society, not just the insurance industry, but I think we are of the more susceptible than most of our work is transactional and knowledge-based. It's adapting so fast. And the people who are on the train early, who ride the mistakes, who try all the tools, who are looking into tools like online, they are going to have such a higher, there's going to be such a delta between where they are and everyone who sticks their head in the sand and tries to do what we've done for 440 years, which is be a laggard on all technology adoption, that I think this could be, and I think it has the highest potential to be the first technology that does not allow you to snap forward if you're a laggard. I could be completely wrong, right? But I obviously was on the side of the independent agent during the Insurtech wars back in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. That was the entire Agency Nation platform, was a push back against all these MIT dicks who had done some sort of regression analysis and figured out that we all sucked at our jobs, right? So like this, I've seen this come and go before. This particular technology has me fearful, unlike any other, and I have no idea where it's gonna go. I just know it moves faster than anything, and it feels like, at least in other spaces, the companies that go early and make the mistakes and ride the wave and figure out what tools and what don't, there's just this enormous delta between the early adopters and the early majority and the laggards. And my recommendation would be, even if you don't have a freaking clue about this stuff, start working with some of these guys. Just pick one tool, pick something that allows you to start to feel what it can do, start to get a handle on it, and be in the game. I just do not think we want to be laggards. I think it's the first technology that could be truly disruptive. Not disintermediate, just truly disruptive.
You mentioned fearful. Are you fearful in a good way or a bad way?
Well, I'm hoping being an advisor of this company that I win either way, so that if AI takes over and everyone's actually screwed, well, I make some money there. And if it doesn't, then I can keep speaking to you guys and teaching about content marketing, and everything will be great.
I will say, you saw like Amazon, the pick it up and walk out of the store and they charge your account, and then it came out that there was really like a call center in India where they were watching the videos. And so, but what that's actually doing is they're training that model through humans, kind of watching those videos. So a lot of what you see, I think, is dreaming and kind of casting forward. I think, like Michael said, none of us really know what 5 years looks like, but to me, there's going to be a lot of tools that are built that there's really powerful AI going on in the background that you don't ever know about, right? It's like kind of like your iPhone, like how incredibly powerful it is. And, the first day after you get the iPhone 17, it feels like the iPhone that you've always had because you get used to that, kind of level of performance. And so you're really looking for tools that, I think right now the ones that are winning are the ones that are getting into a niche and really focused on one core problem or one core problem set. If you're just built on ChatGPT, then ChatGPT is going to overtake you, right? OpenAI is. But a lot of the stuff is still really hard to solve. Like Elon's struggling with, the self-driving robo-taxis that have been coming since 2018, right? And Amazon, it comes out that they don't have that video technology that's watching you check out. It's really, kind of human driven. So there's still a lot of traction to be had there.
I would push back that what we do is comparable to a self-driving car or getting a spaceship to Mars, and that it's just not, the complexity just isn't nearly as close. So we want to be careful there. Also, there is the current version of single function, single task AI, which most models are run off, and in particular, ChatGPT and OpenAI are one of those. The next generation that's coming out, and these models are already being built, is called M3, multi-level, multi-agent, multitask. And when this happens, it means that you can get multiple inputs from multiple different hierarchical structures, from multiple different language models, all pulled together, pushing and pulling data and creating different transactions. It already exists and is in the world today. Now, how that gets, again, my point is not that we're like not going to exist. My point is that there will be the agents who adopt this stuff. It's when I even see basic versions of what some of this next generation of generative AI can do, it's just fucking insane. Like Bank of America right now, Bank of America recently reduced their false positive fraudulent claims by 43% by implementing M3, right? So that means that 43%, all the transactions they do globally, they have got a 43% reduction in false positives by implementing Gen 3 technology. They're taking in all these different data points and able to see, normally, this grouping of data would produce a positive, and then on the back end, we would take all this time, capital, and exposure to figure out that it wasn't actually true. And what they're now able to do with these models is before they even get to that point, they're just chopping it and saying, that's a false positive, we know it immediately, which gives them a higher likelihood of actually executing on the real stuff. How does that apply to us? So that's Bank of America. What this looks like is technology, and Anurag is doing this to a certain extent, so I want to give him credit and has been doing it for a long time, and is really a pioneer in our space, is able to look at who you do business with, figure out who, based on the parameters that you set, lifetime value, churn rate, et cetera, right? Maybe you want to build your book of business with a Hartford, okay, let's just say that. Figure out who the best client is, and then go out and find semantic relationships with people that you don't even know exist today and understanding what is the bind likelihood of that account and what will the lifetime value be, and you know that before you even reach out to them. So instead of doing the cold call consultants pride and joy, make 100 calls, book 2 appointments, sign 1 account, what if instead you were calling 100 accounts that 80 of them were going to book appointments and 60 of them were going to buy from you because you knew based on your book of business that these people were an absolute home run that you could help before you even picked up the phone, right? That's just one piece of what can be done. And when that stuff starts happening and you're still calling 100, getting 2 and 1, and Taylor's making 100 calls, getting 80 and 60, that's where I get the margin from over time. That's where all of a sudden I see your agency up here and the agency that's plugging along without it still there, still alive, not going anywhere, but there is just a major delta, and that's the thing.
No, we're out of time. I highly encourage. Anytime that I want to feel like a giant nerd, I grab one of these guys, and 2 hours later, there's no telling where the conversation goes. But I highly encourage, if you see one of them standing around, grab them, bend their ear, ask them questions. They're all so transparent and willing to help. The one thing that I appreciate out of each individual on this stage, and even the sponsors and vendors that are here, is they want what's best for this industry, not what's best for them. So let's clap it up for all of them. And like I said, I highly encourage you to grab some time. Appreciate you, gentlemen.